On behalf of all young people and people who are first-time buyers, I just want to thank you for artificially inflating the price of houses, making it more unaffordable than ever for first-time buyers to enter the housing market. And thank you again for lining the pockets of those homeowners so the value of their net worth has increased once again. Hi guys, Anthony here and welcome to another video. Home ownership in the UK is a religion. The aim for many is to own their own home, be the king of their own castle, own that cave and have a flag in the ground saying that this is my patch of land. And if you don't own your own home and you rent, then you're seen as a poor relation. Why don't you own your own home and why are you giving away dead money to a landlord? And you can see why people think like that. Home ownership has made a number of people incredibly rich. And as they point out, house prices always go up. However, is the government going to put a stop to that? From March onwards, can we expect a crash? Before the whole world starts falling down and you start panicking thinking all these bricks around you are going to be absolutely worthless, it's worth taking a step back and understanding how important property is to this country. In the UK, the property industry is big business. It directly employs 1.2 million people and generates around about £100 billion to GDP. That's around about 7% of the entire GDP for the country. There's a hell of a lot of people that are employed in this one industry. There's a lot of people in this country who rely on the property industry for people to keep buying and selling houses to make a living. As those of you who have bought houses know, that it's not as simple as you just going out, buying something, and there you go, you've got a house. It requires agents, lawyers, banks, brokers, who all need to earn a living along the way. And by buying and selling houses, it greases the wheels of the economy, just like hitting that like button. As you can imagine, with the property industry so important, employing so many people, the government needs to sometimes help it out. It doesn't want all those 1.2 million people to become unemployed. It needs people to spend money and keep buying houses. So therefore the government has to support the industry sometimes. This can be in the form of incentives, like a few years ago it did the Help to Buy scheme. More recently and right now, it uses a lifetime ISA, which enables you to have government bonuses so you can save for your first home. And more recently, they've issued a stamp duty holiday, which has been the saving grace for the property industry as it headed out of 2020 and into 2021. This was fantastic news for the property industry, and ever since, we've seen house prices, housing activity, sales of houses and people buying just rocket. But what did this mean for the housing industry? And why was it so important? Why are people now claiming that they won't make a living? Why are they so worried about this stamp duty holiday stopping? And why are they really encouraging the government to say, please, 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 give us more money, we need to keep working? Firstly, let's start with what stamp duty is. Stamp duty is a tax which is charged when you buy your home. It's charged for any home purchase over £125,000. And the more expensive your home, the higher the rate of tax you get charged. This just means as the price of the property increases, the percentage that you have to pay in tax increases. A great Robin Hood story of taking from those rich people buying their huge mansions and giving to the poor. So for example, if you're going to buy a £400,000 house and you're not a first-time buyer, then you'd have to pay around £10,000 in stamp duty land tax. As you can see, as it gets higher and higher, it's just an extra expense from the already incredibly expensive house purchase. As we know, buying a house is probably the biggest purchase you'll ever make. As another incentive from the government, first-time buyers aren't charged stamp duty until the value of that property is over £300,000. So that's worth remembering if you are a first-time buyer. So back in July 2020, the Chancellor announced a whole raft of changes. He mentioned that he'd pay 50% of our food bill, that he'd extend the furlough scheme, and he'd send stamp duty on holiday. When the rest of us were stuck in this country, having to work from home, he told stamp duty, you can go off to a tropical island and enjoy the sun. Ultimately what that meant was that we weren't going to be charged stamp duty on house prices up to a value of £500,000. As I just showed in the last example, that can be a huge saving. After the announcement, it meant that every single house in the UK would save money up to £500,000, which would mean that the maximum that you could save would be £15,000. Bosh, 15k to turn this place into a palace. Not too bad really, is it? This was great news for the property industry because during lockdown 1, the whole property industry ground to a halt. people weren't allowed to go and view houses, which, as you can imagine, if you're going to transfer hundreds of thousands of pounds, you're going to want to see it first. You don't want to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on a house that you've never seen, only to find that your spare bedroom is tiny, you can't fit a bed in it, you live next to a main road, and you've got a really noisy neighbour next door who shoots YouTube videos and keeps asking people for likes. But this quite literally was a shot in the arm for the property industry. A bit like the vaccine, it gave everyone confidence and made people now more aware about how much money they were spending. It also meant that people were now rushing to complete their houses as they wanted to save money. And who can blame them? 15k? I'll take that any day. And what this meant for the market was that when people saved money, estate agents kept earning commission, banks kept lending, mortgage brokers kept earning money off the mortgages they provided, and solicitors kept earning fees. And that meant that everyone was a winner. But were they? Now, to understand if people really did benefit from this, we need to look at what really happened. Well, the government announced in July that there would be a stamp duty holiday, as I mentioned earlier, saving thousands of pounds on the purchase of your home. This was always going to end at the end of March 2021, which meant that people now had a time limit, that they either had to buy their house soon and save loads of money or spend way more money. And like everyone, they wanted to get a bargain. If they can save money, then they might as well do it as soon as possible. And I've heard this multiple times from friends and family who now want to get onto the housing ladder and want to make sure they get in quick before the end of March. So first, let's compare the price of a house to where it is today to where it was at the start of all this beer thing in March 2020. So back in March 2020, the average house price was £232,000, which meant that if an average person bought the average house, they would be charged 2% stamp duty on the value of that house, over £125,000. This means they would have paid just over £2,000 tax. However, let's remember that first-time buyers weren't charged stamp duty on the first £300,000 of their property. So for first-time buyers, the stamp duty on that property would have been a big fat zero. Now let's compare the price of the average home today. So at the time of shooting this video, in January 2021, the average house price in the UK is £250,000. This average person who's buying this average house is now having to spend £250,000 on their house rather than £232,000 as they did in March. This means that there's been a gain of £18,000. So as you can see, whilst you might have saved £2,000 in tax, you've actually spent an extra £16,000 on the value of that home. And if you're a first-time buyer, you'll never charge stamp duty anyway, so you weren't getting any saving then, and you're not getting any saving now, so you're just spending an extra £18,000 on the property of your home. So as you can see, the average house price has increased massively, far outweighing the benefits of this stamp duty holiday. Also, another argument that you could say is that interest rates have been incredibly low. They have been incredibly low, however, they've been low for a long time. And between March and the start of 2021, interest rates haven't changed a whole lot. However, house prices really have. Therefore, something else is going on, and there's a bigger push from the housing market more than just interest rates. And that push has been the stamp duty holiday. Now, there are a lot of people out there in the world who are trying to say that the property industry needs a stamp duty holiday, that the property industry will just stop functioning and will crash as a result. However, as we all know, the government has been paying out a lot of taxes recently. They've been helping supporting businesses and individuals as the pandemic has really been hurting all of these people. Now, the government can't just keep supporting industries, and it has given the property industry around about 9 months holiday where they've been making loads of money, which meant that people have been able to remain employed and transactions have been continuing. However, stamp duty is a tax, and because the government hasn't been getting those tax receipts, it means that it's been having a shortfall, which means that the government will need to find tax some other way. I'm not sure about you, but as long as the government doesn't increase income tax, I'll be pretty happy. So because the government needs money, I can't see that the industry will get what they want and the stamp duty holiday will be extended. Now that the stamp duty holiday is likely to come to the end in March, what can we expect? Like most property insiders are predicting, we're probably going to be seeing a slowdown in the number of properties which are sold, which makes sense. If you can't get a saving, then why are you going to spend full whack on a house? If you haven't done it by the end of March, then why don't you just wait? So with slower demand, there'll probably be a softening of prices or just a slowdown in the growth of those prices. Let's remember that interest rates are incredibly low and most houses in the UK are bought using a mortgage, which is just borrowing money from the bank. So lower interest rates mean that the interest on that mortgage is going to be lower, which means that you can afford to take a bigger mortgage out to pay lower amounts of interest. So we won't see prices of houses fall off a huge cliff in March. It's because the property market isn't going to be supported by the stamp duty holiday. We're going to see unemployment really start to bite. Now, unemployment in the UK is on the rise, as you'd expect. Businesses are being hurt by this whole pandemic. The government is supporting people who are out of work, and companies just aren't hiring. And the housing market is closely linked to unemployment. So we're likely to see that as unemployment goes up, house prices go down. And then, once unemployment and government support stops, we're going to see that impact on the housing market. So watch out for the unemployment numbers and how that will impact the housing market. We probably won't see it in the short term, but as the government pulls back from the support to workers and companies, we're likely to see a pullback in house prices. And personally, what I hope that means is that house prices become more affordable and aren't inflated by governments helping manipulate the market in some way. I just want to leave today's video with a public service announcement to the government. On behalf of all young people and people who are first-time buyers, I just want to thank you for artificially inflating the price of houses, making it more unaffordable than ever for first-time buyers to enter the housing market. And thank you again for lining the pockets of those homeowners so the value of their net worth has increased once again. And finally, before we finish, I just want to thank you all for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's video, hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed already and want to see a finance professional talk about everything personal finance, investing and real estate, hit that subscribe button. And if you are at a stage where you want to start investing, then check out the links in the description below to Nutmeg Investments and Trading 212. And I'll see you next time.